Hello, Podsmashers of the Internet, and welcome to another episode of Termite's Buzz, a weekly video game podcast where your host, Termite, that's me, runs you through this week's trophy hunting, currently playing games, as well as the news of the week in the video game industry, and wrapping it up with a little bit of a retro discussion each and every week right here at 80bitpodsmash.com every single Monday at midnight. I am, again, your host, Termite, one of two hosts of 80-Bit Podsmash. The other host, Penguin, and I are taking a little hiatus, a little break from 80-Bit Podsmash, and with that, you're getting a Termite solo show called Termite's Buzz. If you have any interest at all in what we have done in the past, we have a 5-year-long running podcast, over 5 years, with hundreds of episodes. You can still find all of those on our RSS feed that you found this episode. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. And with that, we'll jump right into it. What is Termite currently playing? What are the things I'm working through, and what trophies am I after? Well, got a couple of updates. I am still playing through Final Fantasy Theater Rhythm Final Bar. I still am enjoying my PlayStation VR 2 headset greatly. I'm dabbling in Metroid Prime, and Hogwarts Legacy has pretty much taken the backseat to everything else. I want to start with my little interesting story, PlayStation VR 2. So I've been playing Horizon Call of the Mountain, and in the game, there are collectibles and things you can do, and one of those things is to build a cairn. That's a statue made out of stones to kind of mark your path. And there is a giant stone, table, for lack of a better description. It's just a big giant rock. And on there are two wooden posts at each end, and then the little rocks that you use to make your cairn out of are kind of scattered around. And on the wooden post is a little green triangle, or a colored triangle, that indicates how high you have to go for. So you have to build your stones up to that, to mark, to activate it, to be successful, to achieve the thing. So I'm working on the first cairn I'd ever come across, and I'm very new to VR, and I step over to this giant rock table-like thing, and I'm starting to build my cairn, and I accidentally knock all the rocks backwards, so away from the character. The game is so good, so immersive. The sound, the visuals, the headset, everything is in. I'm locked in. I got my headset on, my 3D audio, all the things. I'm by myself. Well, not really. I'm by myself in the game, but in the room, my wife is behind me sitting on the couch. So I lean forward to reach for one of the little stones to make the cairn out of, and I mistake the giant rock as an actual physical object in space, and I use my other hand to support my weight, but it doesn't exist because it's virtual reality, and I fall face flat, boom, onto the floor, narrowly missing the TV stand, and there's a little door. I was super embarrassed. It was hilarious. My wife cracked up. She's watching me from the perspective, I don't even know if she was paying attention to the TV at all, so she just suddenly sees me fall face forward. Boom. I kind of landed on the DualSense or the Sense controllers, but they're fine. I'm fine. It was a little embarrassing. It dusted off, but just a little funny story. As I continue to play through Horizon Call of the Mountain, I'm working my way through the game. I'm getting the trophies that you would normally have gotten. Who uses words? Oh, I'm getting the trophies anyone would normally get by playing through the story. Trying to get as many of the collectibles on my own. Finding it very difficult to follow a guide, which I'll actually get into my trophy methodology in this show after I talk about what I'm playing. So, yeah, that's where I'm at with it, and I haven't finished the game yet. It's awesome. I'm probably 4 or 5 hours into the game now. I don't get a lot of time to play my PlayStation VR 2 because I do have 2 little children, a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old, as well as a full-time job and a marriage to work on. So I can't really find as much time. It's easier to just roll up into the room and turn the TV on and play a game than it is to put the headset on, put the headphones on, and really get into the game. It's almost like another level of personal free time that you have to schedule or allocate in order to get some good VR time in. So I don't have as much time, going very slowly through it, which is fine. I'm enjoying what I can of it, and I'm so happy I bought the PlayStation VR 2, and I'm very happy with it, and very excited for what will come in the future with that platform, hopefully Half-Life Alyx, but really can't wait for Beat Saber. Probably say that every time I talk about it. So what I'm really working on with trophies is Theater Rhythm Final Bar. So I actually brought up my PSN profiles, if you're not familiar with that. Again, I'm going to go into my methodology after I talk about this, so I can educate y'all who might want to know what Termite does with all this trophy stuff. So I am sitting at 68% done with Theater Rhythm. I have gone through the main story, campaign, whatever you want to call it. Oh, there's actually a trophy guide now. That's new. I'm going back. There's because of the RPG elements in this rhythm game, there's ways to level up, and you can choose your team, like your composition of what characters you want in your team, and you need to level them up so they can learn different abilities. And there are these quests that you have that are kind of challenges outside of just hitting all of the buttons at the right time, like a rhythm game would. It's like destroy 15 enemies in this one song. But what that actually means is that you have to have a party composed of the correct team to get through 15 enemies successfully with the abilities they have and their levels. And sometimes it involves certain enemy types that will silence your team so you can't rely on magic, or they'll stone your team or petrify them so they'll be stoned and can't move for part of the song. And even though you're getting the notes correct, you're still getting hit with these status ailments. And so it does require you to think about what your team composition is. And there's other missions that are beat the last boss, or beat this boss. Well, the boss is at the end of a string of enemies that all have different things that stop you from making progress, even if you hit all of the buttons successfully. So it's interesting. But it's more like a set and forget. So you compose your team, you choose all your abilities and all the buffs and all the things you think might work, and then you have to go and play the song. And all you can do is play the song correctly and hope that it worked. So it's a little tedious. It's so grindy. The game is so grindy, which I'm okay with because I love Theater Rhythm. I think it's amazing. I love the music. I love how it plays and how it feels. And so I'm working through these quests. So the single player walks you through what's all single. There's an online mode, but everything's mostly single player. But the more structured kind of single campaign type thing is you go through every single title, all the Final Fantasy games, and you play through their entire set list. And you have little challenges with each one, and so there's a trophy that is to complete every single challenge across every single game. And I have 10 games complete now. I got that trophy this morning, and I'm still working through the rest. I don't know how many total games there are, but it's very grindy. And so I just went through the game to unlock every song. So that's why you do this, is to unlock the songs, and then you can go play the songs in kind of a more free play mode that's not tied to quest lines or challenges. And you have to unlock all the songs because every single day there are 5 random songs that are the songs of the day, and sometimes those songs of the day can be locked. When there's another trophy to do a perfect run where you hit every single note on all 5 of the daily choices. So you have to unlock all the songs so that the potential 5 daily choices are available to you, and then you can go in. I did that trophy. That wasn't that hard. You can do it on easy mode. There's no difficulty trophies here except for the quests that require you to play it on a harder difficulty, which is kind of buried, right? The trophy is for doing all the quests. So some of the quests might have a difficulty challenge tied to them. But yeah, so I'm still working my way through all the very big grindy things to do all of the series quests is what pretty much it. There's bigger grindy ones like get 5 billion points total. Defeat 5,000 enemies. I think I'm on the cusp of all of those, and get 1,000 different collector cards. Collector cards are little rewards that you get, rewards rather, for playing through different stuff. So that's the focus of my trophy hunting right now, is all about Theater Rhythm. And looking at this guide for the first time ever, and I'm seeing that it's going to take 50 hours, and that's fine because I'm 30 hours in. So I kind of am where I expect. That's good. I like that. So I'll have to read through this guide later and see. So I do want to dip into my trophy hunting methodology, because I know there's a whole segment of my show devoted to trophies, but I don't actually talk about what I do around them and what they are. What they are is simple, and you all should know this by now, but PlayStation has a set of achievements in every single game, well, almost, called trophies. So in Steam, you have achievements. On Xbox or Microsoft titles, you have achievements. In Sony, you've got trophies. And there's bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. And that's what makes Sony's unique, is that there's a platinum trophy for completing every trophy in the game. Whereas on a Microsoft or Steam platform, you just unlock all the achievements and that's it. There's no extra special thing. But with Sony, there is. And those trophies have an underlying point system that will level up your profile, your PSN profile. And right now, I'm sitting at... What level am I? I am sitting at level 419, with 92 platinum trophies, 520 golds, 1,203 silvers, and 4,412 bronze trophies at the moment that I'm recording this. So my methodology starts with when a game comes out or is released or announced, right? So you see like Final Fantasy 16, for example, is announced. The trophy list hasn't dropped yet. So as we get closer to release in June, the trophy list will come out. So I immediately start looking at the trophy list, and I read through all of them. Yes, whatever spoilers are in the trophy names and whatever is what I succumb myself. Like, that's it. Like, I'm just going to subject myself to that spoiler, and I'm okay with that because the trophy hunt is real. I want to go through and see things like, do I have to play on a hard mode? Do I need to play through the game twice? Is there anything that's online? Because those are the pain points. And what I do with this trophy list is kind of assess, am I actually going to try to platinum this game? Because that changes everything. If I am going to platinum the game, I need to follow a guide. Again, I'm married with 2 kids and a full-time job. So I can't just play the game for fun and then redo it again and get the trophies. No, I need to optimize my playtime. So if I'm going to go for a platinum trophy, I need to find the guide, and I will follow the guide religiously on the first playthrough. And if I can get a platinum trophy on one playthrough, whether there's glitches or not or exploitations, I will do it, especially if it doesn't involve things like difficulty. So my biggest gripe against difficulty trophies is that it will require you to die a lot or to redo a lot of things as you improve your skills and learn the game, learn the mechanics, learn the levels, or in the sense of From Software games, you would learn the boss, and you have to learn them so well by a trial and error, so you just have to constantly throw yourself at it. I don't have the time for that, and that frustrates me a lot if I have to constantly die and redo things. So I assess the trophies, I look at a guide, and then when I decide I want to play it, what I also have going on for me is I like to look at my PSN profile statistics. Now you can go, it's public, Termite04 is my tag, you can check this out. In it is how many games you've played, how many completed games, there's a completion percentage, of all of the titles, what is your average completion, how many unearned trophies from all the games, how many trophies per day, as well as some ranks like world ranks and country ranks. But what I really care about are a couple of things. I like my completion rate to be higher than 50%. And the reason is because I don't like to jump between a bunch of games. I like to get the value of a game out of it. So when I play a game, I like to get as much time with it and get all the things. I want to experience the full game. I don't like a 1% or a 2% trophy. You play the game, you unlock the intro trophy, and then you move on to a different game. For me, that looks like a messy profile. It's a whole bunch of games on there that you didn't actually play. You can't really speak to them. You've just dabbled in them all and moved on. And that's fine for people who want to do that. But this is my trophy wall. This is my account. So this is what I care about. So I want my completion rate to be high. So right now I'm sitting at a 51.8% average. Now, I didn't start trophy hunting until 4 or 5 years into my stint with PlayStation 3. And so a lot of my early PlayStation 3 experiences were that, where I would just jump in, play through a game's main story, and bounce. And so I have a lot of low trophy percentages. There's some plugins to PlayStation profiles that some of the community members have created, and I installed one of those plugins, and it allows you to create a list, a custom list. And I have sorted my game list by, you get a rank, a grade actually, like A, B, C, D, E, and F. F is if you just put a game in and you've done nothing. E is, I think you get 1 trophy, but the letter grade is based on the assessment of PlayStation profiles specifically, so it's not really the whole PlayStation network. It's just PSN profiles, which is a subset of trophy hunters. So it grades you, and there's an average rank, and I like my average rank to be an A. So as of right now, I've got 70 S ranks. Now, S you can get by either platinuming or 100%ing them, but sometimes you can get an S rank if not a lot of people have played that game on PSN profiles, and you've done a lot. I have 66 A's, 25 B's, 32 C's, 20 D's, 43 E's. So that goes back to what I was talking about with my early days on PS3. So I have a list of every E-ranked game set aside. So if I ever have any extra hours to burn and I don't want to start a new game, because starting a new game is its own hurdle to overcome. If I start a new game, I have to go through the mental exercise of, am I going to commit to playing this? I I don't want to dabble. So it makes it very difficult to roll retro games into my backlog as I want to play. And I made this mistake most recently with Dead Space. I have the original on PS3, and I wanted to play through it. Looking at the trophy list, there's a lot of stupid ones, like the hardest difficulty possible, and playing through the game with the weakest gun all the way through, and like all these nonsense trophies. I don't want to do those. I'm not going to get the platinum, but I at least wanted to get through the campaign to get more than that 50% completion. So I still want to get all the collectibles, I'll follow a walkthrough, I'll do all the things, but I started Dead Space thinking I had time for it and didn't. I got pulled away, so now that is one of my most recent E ranks, and it drives me crazy. So I use this methodology when I roll a game into my backlog, into what I'm actually going to play. Do I have the time to commit to this? One of the other mistakes I have made is starting Assassin's Creed Origins when I thought I had time to play it and didn't. And it turns out that it's really slow to get started in that game, and there's a lot of prologue and intro tutorial things, and I only have a few trophies, if not more than one. I don't even know. It's very little. So it's another E. I don't like that. So when I'm going through my statistics, I will look at those games and say, hey, I need to revisit those and try to increase their rate, and I'll prioritize that over starting new titles. What also throws a wrench into this whole thing is if a big anticipated title drops, like Final Fantasy 16. I'm using that as an example because it's fresh on my mind, playing Final Fantasy Theater Rhythm. So when Final Fantasy 16 comes out, it's like, I need to start planning now for June so that I can wrap up the platinums that I want to get prior to that game coming out. With the other statistics, the trophies per day, I'm sitting at 1.4 trophies per day. My original goal was to have at least one trophy a day, so that's 30 trophies a month. So I have a rate of trophies that I also need to target. So sometimes I'll hold off on like an auto pop game that's been ported from PS4 to PS5. Like the PS5 version will come out. I think Outer Worlds is about to drop. And so I don't have the platinum in Outer Worlds, but I have some trophies. And I know if there is an auto pop, I'll get like a free trophy hit, a bump. So I'll save that for a fresh month. So I'll wait till like April, and I'll be like, boom, transfer that over, pop those trophies. That'll increase my rate for April and lower some pressure. And then I want to get 2 platinums per month, averaging 24 a year. And so I'm at 3 platinums for the year, and it's March. So I'm 1 down. I was supposed to have 2 for January, 2 for February. But I'm currently working on 4 platinum trophies. They're just long. So those 4 will hit, now 7. But I have until, the end of March / the middle of April to get that done and wrap up these spring titles before I move on to what's coming in June, which is Final Fantasy 16. And I hope any of this makes any sense. If you want to follow along, you can check out my PSN profiles. It's psnprofiles.com/termite04 is my account, and you'll see my whole list, my whole wall. But this is how I approach all gaming. So even when I want to switch gears to play something on Xbox or play something on Switch, I don't prioritize those other platforms because I care so much about the trophies. And I'll purposely play games on PlayStation and not anywhere else because of trophies as well. So I always care about trophies. I care about the rate. I care about how much completion I'm doing for each title. In fact, I'm looking at Hogwarts Legacy is sitting at an E. Tactics Ogre Reborn is sitting at an E. And those are not very pleasing to me. I don't like that. So coming off of last year, though, I had Sifu, Crisis Core, Sonic Frontiers, and the Dragon Ball Z Kakarot Auto Pop. 4 platinums in a row. I was sitting pretty for a while. And then that was off of God of War Ragnarok as well. So trying to increase the trophy count. I will definitely hit 100 platinums this year. I'm at 92 now, and like I said, I've got 4 in the book, or on the books about to hit, and whenever I can complete them. One of those is Persona 5 Royal for the second time, and I think I'm like a third of the way through the game. So that's going way faster since I know what I'm doing, and it's way, way back burner stuff. So that's enough trophies and what Termite is currently playing, my methodology, and how I approach new games, rotating them into my schedule and what I'm doing. So with this, we'll go on to the news. There was a lot of little news hits this week, a lot of things that you might find interesting if you read them, but I'm just going to hit the one because I want to talk about some retro stuff at the end of this show. So the biggest thing that happened in the gaming industry was a Pokemon Presents that happened at the beginning of the week. And it was a very, in my opinion, extremely underwhelming presentation. A lot of hype was out there about like what's coming next for the Pokemon Legends series. Is there going to be an update to Scarlet and Violet, maybe a relaunch or a huge patch announcement with improvements? Was there going to be the release of red, blue, yellow, silver, or gold onto the Nintendo Switch Online service, because if you remember, they announced Game Boy games are there. You can go play them now, and there's Game Boy Advance games. So there was a lot of hype around Pokemon Home integration with the retro titles, much like what the 3DS did with Pokemon Bank and Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow, and Silver, Crystal, and Gold. So a lot of cool things could have been here, but this is what we got. It started off with an introduction about the Pokemon World Championships being in Japan this year, which is for the first time ever, which is kind of crazy, from August 11th through the 13th. I'm actually going to be reading from an article written by Maddie Myers over at Polygon. So a live stream kicked off with an announcement about the Pokemon World Championship, which will be held in Japan for the first time ever. From August 11th through the 13th at the Pacifico Yokohama, gamers will compete in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, the Pokemon trading card game, and Pokemon Unite. The event will also air as a live broadcast for fans who cannot attend in person. So, okay, next. Pokemon Trading Card Game Classic. This was actually a surprise that I'm very interested in, but I didn't expect it or know what was going on when the announcement was happening. The Pokemon Company is re-releasing the original Pokemon trading card game, that is to say the original lineup of cards, in a deluxe package designed to be an all-in-one way to play the trading card game. Pokemon Trading Card Game Classic is expected to launch in late 2023. Pricing was not announced. More information will be revealed about this release at the Pokemon Championships. What it showed in this ad, if you will, commercial, were two adults playing at a table in like a fancy room, and they were dressed in fancy clothes, and it was this black box that opened up, and in it had these little triangular cone-shaped damage counters, slots for all the cards. All of the cards were sleeved, and it was a whole game board all wrapped up in this like fancy black box. And then later, after the announcement had happened, it was known that there will be 3 decks of cards included in this box set, and each deck one will have Blastoise, one will have Venusaur, and one will have Charizard, and that's all we know. And it's all the original Pokemon trading card game cards from the base set. But is it all of them, or is it the entire set, or is it just 3 custom decks derived from a mixture of some of the cards? Don't know yet. I'm excited about this. I'm gonna keep my eye on it. I think this would be awesome. And I'm also wondering if the sleeves that the cards were in come with this set, or if it's just the cards. I don't know, but it seems like it's a pretty good collector's item, and I'm really into that kind of thing. So, yeah, I'm excited about that. Next up was Netflix's Pokemon Concierge, a new original series to be released on the streaming service using stop-motion animation. The series will expand on the Pokemon universe. The show takes place at a Pokemon resort, and follows the story of a concierge named Haru and the many Pokemon that visit as guests. A very brief trailer depicted a Psyduck walking slowly along a beach. So, a new Pokemon show on Netflix, but stop-action animation seems interesting, I guess. Moving on was an announcement about Pokemon Unite. That's their mobile game. It's kind of a MOBA, actually. Legendary Pokemon Zacian is joining Pokemon Unite. Fans may recall this Pokemon is a dog with a sword in its mouth. Also, to celebrate Pokemon Day, Pokemon Unite is distributing a special item. Use the code Pokemon Day to unlock it. It showed some gameplay footage of this new Pokemon in Pokemon Unite. I don't play Pokemon Unite. I don't really care about Pokemon Unite or any of the mobile games that Pokemon have, such as the next thing, Pokemon Cafe. Pokemon Cafe Remix is adding Sprigatito, Quaxley, and Fuecoco, which are the 3 new starters in Scarlet and Violet. The game is also celebrating Pokemon Day by giving away an in-game outfit for Chef Greninja. Okay, what else is next? Well, if you remember, years and years ago, there was an announcement for a Pokemon Sleep, and everyone's been speculating about what the crap is Pokemon Sleep. We've got Pokemon Go. The opposite is Pokemon Sleep, right? Well, we got a full-length trailer. The long-awaited Pokemon Sleep. A little like an alarm clock crossed with Pokemon Go, it's a mobile game that rewards you for getting a good night's sleep. The app measures, records, and analyzes your sleep. Pokemon who tend to sleep in the same way that you do will show up in your game. The game thereby encourages you to research the sleep styles of various Pokemon. Alongside that was the hardware device called the Pokemon Go Plus Plus. Yes, I said that correctly. The device previously known as the Pokemon Go Plus is getting a new one, Pokemon Go Plus Plus. It can be used with Pokemon Go and Pokemon Sleep. It's a small Pokeball-shaped device that you can leave on your pillow at night to aid you in Pokemon Sleep, or carry in a bag during the day to catch Pokemon automatically in Pokemon Go. If these are up your alley, if it's stuff you want to care about, good. I'm glad you all are excited. But so far, at this point in the Pokemon Presents, I have been severely underwhelmed, and I'm mildly interested in the trading card game thing that was shown off. So what's next? Looks like some updates to their video games, the mainline ones. Okay, Scarlet and Violet are next. New Paradox Pokemon are coming to Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Walking Wake, which is a shiny bull-like Pokemon, will appear in Scarlet, and a Pokemon named Iron Leaves, which looks like a deer, will be in Pokemon Violet. Later today, an update will roll out for Pokemon Go players that allows them to connect their game to Scarlet and Violet. The Pokemon Company also announced that Pokemon Home support for Scarlet and Violet is coming out in early 2023. Okay, well, we got an update on Pokemon Home. That's cool. I guess Pokemon Go being connected to Scarlet and Violet is neat. If you can trade Pokemon from one to the other, that's neat. These Paradox Pokemon, the Walking Wake is a Suicune that looks different, and the Iron Leaves looks like the legendary from Pokemon Y, I believe Yveltal. I can't pronounce the name, but it's the deer from Pokemon Y that's different skinned, and they have different types in their Terraform, whatever that's called. Okay, then was the final showcase, the one more thing or whatever. We're going to wrap up with this. The final trailer was for the upcoming DLC for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet called The Hidden Treasures of Area Zero. Part 1 of the DLC is called The Teal Mask and will be released in the fall of 2023, and Part 2 is the Indigo Disc, which will come out later in winter 2023. In Part 1, players will visit the land of Kitakami as part of a school trip. In the second part of the DLC, players will be exchange students at Blueberry Academy. Legendary Pokemon called Ograpon and Terrapagos will be introduced in this DLC. The Hidden Treasure of Area Zero will be available to pre-order in the Nintendo eShop later today. So if you want to pre-order those, you can get that now, and there might be some extra benefits. And that's it. That was the Pokemon Presents. That was the whole show. Nothing in there blew my skirt up, for lack of a better word. That's very underwhelming, very disappointing. Like, some people got up at 6 in the morning on the West Coast to watch that, and we're like, oh, all of those things could have just been like standalone random tweets. It was not worth putting those all together into a big presents. Now, I could just be bitter because there wasn't anything that I talked about at the beginning, like an update to Pokemon Legends and actual patches and performance updates to Scarlet and Violet, or a release of the retro Game Boy games on the Nintendo Switch Online service. Those are the things I was the most excited and or looking forward to. Maybe I'm just bitter because I didn't get what I wanted, but I do believe that there was a general internet consensus that this was kind of an underwhelming Pokemon Presents. But it did seem like if there's any of those games you were interested in, Pokemon Unite, Cafe Remix, Pokemon Go, Pokemon Sleep, that kind of thing, people who do that are interested. They got fed a little bit. Maybe they're a little more excited than I would be. I just don't dabble in those things anymore. Pokemon Go is cool. I like it, but I don't really play it that much. So, yeah. I want to understand that people can be excited for those things. I'm not saying this was bad or that anything was shown off was lame. I'm just saying that I wasn't super excited about it. And that's all there is. And I think there's a general consensus that agrees with me, but I digress. The final segment of my show, Termite's Buzz, is the retro discussion. So as I mentioned earlier, Game Boy Advance games came to Nintendo Switch Online. One of my favorite Game Boy Advance games is, of course, Mario Kart Super Circuit, because I'm obsessed with Mario Kart, and I've played all of them. I have all of them. I love all of them for their different quirks, except for Mario Kart Wii. That one's bad. We're just not going to talk about that one. But I still played it. I love Mario Kart Super Circuit. Reason being is, in high school, I would actually bring my Game Boy Advance with some friends who also brought their Game Boy Advances, and we used the link cable and played almost every morning before school started. My mom worked in the cafeteria at the time, and so I used to ride to school with her in the car, not on the bus, and that would mean that I got there way earlier than other kids, sometimes like 45 minutes to an hour early. It had its downside. When you're in high school and you have to get up that much earlier and get out of the house that much earlier, that's awful. So that part was not fun. But what was cool was playing games like Legend of Zelda 4 Swords and Mario Kart Super Circuit before class every single day. with your friends, and then that would translate into gatherings after school or over the weekend with friends. We would continue to play, and so I have a lot of fond memories of Mario Kart with friends, the Game Boy Advance one specifically. Well, of course, I had to dabble and try and test. New games are coming, right? I want to see what this looks like. I want to test the rewind feature. I want to see what it looks like, all the different types of screen filters you can do. You can make it look like the old school Game Boy Advance screen. You can stretch the aspect ratio out to make it full screen. It has like 4K up-res, so how sharp does it look on my 4K TV? It's not actually 4K. The Nintendo Switch is only 1080, but, I was, trying it all out, right? I got a little hooked. I'm not going to lie. I started playing Mario Kart Super Circuit, going through the different cups. I finished the Mushroom Cup, the Flower Cup, the Lightning, and I don't even remember all of them by heart without looking at it. And what I noticed was really cool, and I wanted to talk about it on the show, was I was playing one match that was in Bowser's Castle, which, of course, you're driving on cobblestone, whatever, like a castle wall would be. And then the next race was like one of the race tracks. So it was like Mario's Circuit or Luigi's Circuit. It was in the rain. And I was like, I cannot believe the dynamics here present in a tiny little handheld console. It still holds up to this day graphically, which is saying a lot. Definitely like 16-bit, like better than Super Nintendo age era, but not quite as good as the full-blown 3D. But the sprite work, animations, and sound are incredible for what it was, right? The limitations of the hardware. These games hold up. They're handheld titles that I'm playing on a couch on a big screen TV in 2023, and I'm having a blast. But what I really didn't notice until I guess I'm an adult, was the feel of the road was actually different. So it was a little like slippery on the cobblestones, but the road itself had a different type of grip. It actually changed my drift line, and it was fascinating. I was like, I can't believe there's this level of detail in here. And then the rain, there was one course that progressively gets darker, like it's called Sunset Boulevard, I think, and each lap it gets darker and darker as the sun sets, and then there's like different obstacles that show up at night, all in one race. Like it's just a 3-lap race. It might take you less than 10 minutes to finish the whole thing, maybe less than 5 minutes, but there's this much like dynamic things happening in each race. And I now, as a mid-30s gamer who's experienced so many video games in my life, I really, really appreciate how there's so much like nuance that I missed as a kid. I didn't really pay attention to those things. So now I actually can, because I'm now mindful of like game development and what software developers do. And nothing is free, folks. Every single thing you think of, you see in a video game was thought out, planned, and intentionally there, except for like the bugs. The bugs are the things that aren't planned out. So when you have tracks that change time of day, you have dynamic weather, and you have different types of terrain that you're driving over, and it actually behaves different. Those things are all intentional, and it's really, really cool. So if you have the Nintendo Switch online service with the expansion pass, you have access to the Nintendo Game Boy Advance library with no additional charge other than the cost it takes to make the expansion pack, which I think is a $30 per year upgrade over the base subscription, which is $20 a year. I might be wrong. It might be $30 a year with an extra $20. Either way, for $50 a year, you get all of it. It's totally worth it. And I absolutely love the Game Boy Advance selection so far, and there's a lot more fun things to come. If you haven't played Legend of Zelda Minish Cap, it's one of the most underrated Zeldas, if not one of the most underrated Nintendo games of all of Nintendo's library. Absolutely phenomenal Zelda game. If you at all loved Link's Awakening, or Oracle of Ages, Oracle of Seasons, or Link to the Past, or any of those old top-down Zelda games, the Minish Cap is definitely worth your time. If you have at all any extra time to spare on a retro title, please go back and play Minish Cap. The level design, the puzzles, the dungeons, the collection of weapons, it's very, very different from previous entries in Zelda, and they borrowed a lot of fun things from Wind Waker and Ocarina of Time, and it's just a fantastic game. I haven't actually been playing that, so I will probably leave that there. But I have been playing Mario Kart Super Circuit and surprisingly enjoying it, and I'm working my way through very, very slow. I mean, like I've talked at the beginning of the show what I'm actually playing. I'm mostly playing Theater Rhythm more than anything else, and PlayStation VR 2, but when I'm not playing Metroid Prime Remastered, which I'm also working my way through, I dabbled in Mario Kart Super Circuit. There's so much game. There's so many games. There's so much out there to play. I am fed. At any moment, I just get a whim. On a whim, I want to play something, and I'll just change gears sometimes and go play those things, as long as they're not on PlayStation, where I have a very strict method of trophy hunting with which I approach my games. So if it's anything on Nintendo or Xbox platforms, I'm just allowed to be spontaneous, and I do it, or I allow myself to be spontaneous, and we'll go play those things and do it up. The last thing I want to talk about with my retro talk is I think I have officially committed to sending in my launch PlayStation 3 console to Computer Booter over in California, who's going to install a new chip a newer chip, either the 65 nanometer or the 40 nanometer chip, onto the board of the original, which usually has a 90 nanometer chip that fails. So it's called a Frankenstein mod. It's crazy advanced. It requires a lot of skill and a lot of equipment. And so I'm going to send the console out. I'm going to have it done. I'm super excited. Right now, I am in the process of acquiring some of the packaging and shipping materials. I want to make sure that this console is flawless when it gets there, because it's flawless now. It's gorgeous. And when I get it back, it'll actually be... I can finally have a PlayStation 3 that plays PS1, 2, and 3 titles. It'll be backwards compatible natively with PlayStation 2 games. It has the memory card readers in it. It has Wi-Fi, all of the things from launch, fully working, and hopefully it will it'll stay alive for the rest of my life with a little bit of time that I'll have to actually play it. I'm not going to be hitting this thing hard, but it will be my new primary PS3. I will make sure that it is synced and up to date with my PlayStation profile, and I will use it for all of my PlayStation needs from now forward. And I'd like to start using Twitch and live streaming some things off of it. I want to play through Dirge of Cerberus, which I have a copy of on PS2. It'd be fun to live stream that, as well as any other PS2 game. I've been thinking about doing a Metal Gear Solid replay, and I have 2 and 3, the HD versions, and Metal Gear Solid 4 I had finished prior to the patch. They added trophies to it, so I'd like to go back and replay it and get trophies and play the games again. I love Metal Gear Solid. It's been so long since I've played them all. I was greatly disappointed by Metal Gear Solid 5. I did not like it at all, and I have zero intention to revisit that game, but 1, 2, 3, and 4 are incredible, and I want to play those, as well as like any other retro PS3 game I would like to play. I can do on this console when I get it back. I'm hoping I have more details for y'all later, but it's in the works, trying to do a little interview with the guy who's going to fix it, as well as promoting his live stream of when my console will actually be being worked on with his stream, because he streams all of his repairs. So more details to come about what all that looks like. I'm excited about it. I hope y'all will be. It'll be good content for this show and our retro discussions. So I'm excited about that. Since I've been playing a lot of Theater Rhythm, of course, I've been going through old Final Fantasy titles and hearing their songs. I really wanted to talk about the impact Final Fantasy has had on my gaming tastes and like my gaming, like who I am as a gamer and my life, what Final Fantasy has done for me. And I know we did a whole episode on 80-Bit Podsmash about Final Fantasy and our franchise episodes series. I don't remember what we called it. Everything franchise, I believe, where we went through like everything about Final Fantasy and its impact on the gaming industry and the things that it brought. But that doesn't leave a whole lot of room to talk about like my personal experience with Final Fantasy. So growing up, T-Bone, friend of the show, he'll probably be a guest on the show soon too. We rented some old Final Fantasy titles when we were really little. We had a Super Nintendo in the house. We may have rented Final Fantasy 1 on the Nintendo, but the text we were too little to understand and read the text to understand what to do, and the combat system being turn-based wasn't like an action platformer, so it didn't really translate to what we had been exposed to, so it didn't really jive. I didn't get it. I don't think we got really into it, and it wasn't until Super Nintendo had been out for a while, Super Mario RPG had come out, and Jim, friend of the show, as Penguin refers to as Jimothy, let us play his copy of Super Mario RPG. Now, this was my actual first Japanese RPG experience, where I was old enough to understand that this is a different type of game than Mario. But I didn't know that until I actually played it. So the anticipation of Super Mario RPG, I had only seen those little trailers where you can see like minecart racing and barrel jumping and like cool things that looked all 3D and neat. What I didn't know is that actually it was a full-blown RPG with like gear and stats and equipment and text-based dialogue and turn-based combat. So as we were playing it, I remember, oh, this is different, but I love it, and it's awesome. And so I continued to want to play more of it, but never had our own copy. And then there was other games like Chrono Trigger that were also around at the time. And I remember playing those. And of course, I didn't have my own copy of that either, but I'd play it at James' house and loved it. So time keeps on marching forward. And of course, we get the Nintendo 64 is next. And I'm just completely distracted from RPGs. I am all about Mario 64, Star Fox 64, GoldenEye, Mario Kart 64, Banjo-Kazooie, Mortal Kombat. And then we got a PlayStation. So Mortal Kombat 4 had come out. We were into that on Super N64. But for PlayStation, we had the Mortal Kombat trilogy and Street Fighter Alpha 3, Crash Bandicoot, all these other types of action, fighting, platforming games. And then Final Fantasy VII dropped. And of course, James got it first. He brought his game to our house and played it on my PlayStation. And he didn't even have a PlayStation at the time, which was awesome. It's actually a really fond memory. One of those, if you watched the movie Inside Out from Pixar, one of those core memories was when Final Fantasy VII had come out and James came over and we played it pretty much all night long. I remember staying up way too late watching. And it was one of those moments where the songs and the atmosphere and the vibe get embedded into your brain. And when you sleep, that's all you think about. And it's kind of a rough sleep. You don't really sleep soundly because you're just constantly thinking about it. And I wanted it so bad. I don't know when we got it, but Final Fantasy VII was my first real Final Fantasy experience. So all of that was my history lesson leading up to my RPG exposure to get to Final Fantasy VII. And that turned my world upside down. It was absolutely amazing, absolutely incredible, and it just blew open the doors for Japanese RPGs. I wanted all of them. I wanted to continue playing them. I remember the site RP Gamer would have articles and posts about all the new things coming and following Squaresoft for the first time and looking ahead at what's coming and playing more stuff. And of course, James fueled that fire with him getting games and us getting games and going to each other's houses and playing more. So Tales of Destiny was another RPG, and then of course Saga Frontier and Vagrant Story, and the list goes on. I mean, PlayStation just has a golden list of RPGs. The next Final Fantasy game I played was Final Fantasy Tactics, which was an entirely different... You didn't think that Japanese RPGs could be an already change in direction in game taste. So then came Tactics, which was inspired by Tactics Ogre, a grid-based system. And now I had not gotten to things like Fire Emblem or Advance Wars or those things yet because they weren't out yet. But Final Fantasy Tactics was my first grid-based strategy-type game. I never played any of the Tactics Ogre games. And it was amazing. I loved Final Fantasy Tactics. And it goes on from there. So then Final Fantasy VIII had come out, and I actually didn't enjoy that one as much. Final Fantasy IX came out, and there's a famous story where my mom went to spend my brother's money on the game, and I kind of fault her for that, but I was implicit a little. I mean, I don't know if I was too young or too old, but of course I'm like a child. I'm going to be like, yes, go spend the money to get me the game. I don't care where the money comes from or who it belongs to. I just want to play the game. I don't care. And so that's an interesting story. Sorry, T-Bone. Your mom spent your money on a game you may not have wanted right away. But it was Final Fantasy IX, and that's of the mainline Final Fantasies, just 1 through 15, 9 is my second favorite, 7 being my favorite. So I love Final Fantasy IX. And then the PlayStation 2 had come out, and I remember the anticipation of Final Fantasy X, but there was something about, PlayStation 2 really showed its power, what it could do with games like Devil May Cry and The Bouncer, and there was these other very short, action-y type games that showcase 60 frames per second, higher resolution graphics, way less dithering, and longer view distance, and PlayStation 2 was awesome, but it wasn't until Final Fantasy X had come out that that really showcased what the PlayStation 2 was capable of. I remember the voice acting, the music, it was a much more linear Final Fantasy game than the previous ones, but I didn't really care about that so much because the story was great, the characters were awesome, the graphics were phenomenal, blew open, oh my gosh, this is the best thing I've ever seen in my life. I just loved Final Fantasy X. And then Final Fantasy XI. I had never played an MMORPG, I kind of didn't really know what to expect with it. I just knew I loved Final Fantasy so much that when 11 had come out, I was like, I don't care. I'm not playing nothing else. No more Counter-Strike. No more Warcraft 3. No more Battlefield. Whatever other games. I'm done. I'm playing Final Fantasy 11. I can't wait to sink my teeth into this game. It's going to be so good. And everything I'd read about MMORPGs was that it's going to require a monthly subscription. I had a job. I had it covered. And I'm ready to go. It's time sink, right? Single, just going to school and working, like plenty of time to play games, right? I got into Final Fantasy 11 initially, and maybe 20, 30 hours in, when I realized what it would take to level up, it was extraordinarily slow, and it required you to work with other people in a party, but there wasn't any of the tools that we have today, like Discord or built-in game tools to really openly communicate with people easily to acquire a party, which required real life people to kind of get together and see and collaborate in real life, which I didn't have because I was the only person in my friend group that cared. So I was kind of isolated. I know James and T-Bone had their Link Shell or whatever it was called, their guild, and they got super into it. But I was ahead of them, but then didn't go with them like I should have. Instead, I fell off and started playing things like Halo and all these other games, and it didn't click with me. It was way too slow, way too grindy, and I remember just entire evenings of T-Bone's entire nights of playing just to get like one level, much less like actually do a story beat or do a quest no, it was just level grinding for weeks and weeks and weeks to get one level per night, maybe, if not like one level a week. And it was just to get the level up high enough to do the next quest, which I don't know how long quests would take, but I was not okay with just grinding for levels for an entire night. Like if I was going to play 5 or 6 hours, I wanted something else to show for it more than just one level. I get it. They were trying to highlight the idea of working together as a party because in Final Fantasy, the party system was the crux of it all. You always have a multi-person team like together that you form. And so Final Fantasy 11 was to put you, the player, as a member of a team. And so I get it. It's fine. Moving on. Final Fantasy 12 had come out, and I thought when I had played Final Fantasy 12 on the PS2 for the first time that it took too much of the MMO gameplay mechanics and applied it to a single-player game, and I was turned off by that at that age and stage of my life, and I never really what I loved about 12 was that it was set in the same world as Final Fantasy Tactics and Final Fantasy Tactics Advance, which I also loved. I played through all of the Tactics Advance. I love that game tremendously. It's awesome. And moving on through 12, I just didn't really like that. The Gambit system was kind of... I need to go back and replay it again as an adult. It's actually on my list. I have the remastered or whatever up-resed version for PS4 sitting on the shelf whenever I feel like playing a Final Fantasy game again. I also need to go back and visit 8 again. I haven't done that. But all of that to say, and Final Fantasy 13 had come out. I got it on Xbox 360 when it launched. I played the mess out of it. I fell off because the story didn't really hook. So, I didn't finish it. But I did circle back around on the PlayStation 3, started a whole new file, and played through the entire game, and I did finish it, and it was so much better when it's removed from the context. It's an interesting thought about Final Fantasy 13, because it was such a different direction for Final Fantasy, again, way more linear, like more linear than Final Fantasy 10 even, and people were hating on the story, the whole, like, Lissy, and the pulse and the ground, and, like, whatever... I don't even have it all in my head memorized anymore, but it was so interesting because it was the first new mainline Final Fantasy in a very long time because 12 was the last one that had come out. So new generation hardware. People had bought PlayStation 3s specifically to get Final Fantasy 13. It was hyped up like mad. New graphics, new cinematics, just like, oh, this is going to be so good. Everyone was all about it. And when it launched... the expectations, I feel like, were just set so high that it was impossible for anyone to ever, like, for those expectations to have been met. Like, there's just no way. There's no game that would have been able to come out as Final Fantasy 13 to meet those expectations, arguably. And so, once years removed from that, I guess, I don't even know when Final Fantasy 13, what year it came out. I'm going to look it up. Final Fantasy 13 release date. It came out in 2009. So, fast forward now. Wow, I can't believe it's been that long. 14 years. completely removed from the context of both the expectation and the other Final Fantasies around it. The game's amazing. It holds up really, really well. It's beautiful. The music's great. The story's fine. Like, it's not that long or that deep of a Final Fantasy game to its fault when it came out. And now it's totally great. So go back and play it. I haven't played the sequels. I have them on my shelf, 13-2 and Lightning Returns, so I'm actually eager to go back and play them. It's one of the things on my list to play on my new Frankenstein PS3 whenever I get it. So that's Final Fantasy 13, and then 14 had come out, back to the MMO world again, but this was post-World of Warcraft, so expectations were different for Final Fantasy 14. And the game had launched, and of course, infamously, it was launched in a terrible state. The game was awful, not balanced, super slow, grindy, the engine not optimized, everything about the game was bad, so much so that Square Enix put someone else at the helm. That would be Yoshida, who... Is it Yoshida? Oh my gosh. Realm Reborn director? Yeah, Yoshida. Okay. Naoki Yoshida. Relaunched the entire game from the ground up, called Final Fantasy XIV Realm Reborn. And that was my third MMORPG, second to World of Warcraft. So I played World of Warcraft a lot. In fact, while T-Bone was in Final Fantasy XI World, I was in World of Warcraft. So Realm Reborn had come out. At this time, I was now married, didn't have any kids yet, had a few friends who were interested in playing Final Fantasy XIV, and so we jumped in hard. And I did level a character all the way to max. Thoroughly enjoyed Final Fantasy XIV. Absolutely incredible. Beautiful world. But I never played any of the expansions, which I hear are even better. And now that I have the kids and the jobs and the things, I just don't have time for MMOs anymore. But Yoshida is at the helm of Final Fantasy 16. Of course, Final Fantasy 15 come out. It was originally announced as Final Fantasy 13 Versus. It went through development hell like crazy. Before it finally had come out, it's Final Fantasy 15, and that's the bachelor party, big, massive, westernized version of Final Fantasy. It's now... taking all of the things that made The Witcher and Fallout and Skyrim and all these other Western RPGs finally had their influence realized in a Final Fantasy game, and I don't think it landed very well. A lot of people criticized it. It was kind of not paced correctly. It was super, super slow paced at the very front, where very little story stuff would happen over the first 40 or 50 hours, and then all the story it went from wide open worlds to super narrow and linear, and then all of the extra DLCs that had come out afterward, now that it's all out there and it's all released, was just we all knew it was fragmented, the story wasn't complete, there was stuff relegated to DLC that should have been in the main story, and there was a huge patch, a big update, and they reorchestrated the late chapters of the game. And I haven't played it since then. I did platinum that title. I enjoyed Final Fantasy 15. I understand that it wasn't the best. And then, of course, 16's on the horizon. What's interesting to me now, we have Final Fantasy 7 Remake and the sequel and the Crisis Core all happening on the side over there. Final Fantasy 7 Remake is absolutely amazing. Probably the second best Final Fantasy ever. When I said mainline Final Fantasies, if you were to rank and stack just 1 through 16's original releases, 16 we don't know yet, but through 15, Final Fantasy 9 is my second favorite, but Final Fantasy 7 is my absolute favorite single game of all time, and Remake is right up there with it. They're together. To me, they're exactly the same as far as what they offer for their time and what they do. Final Fantasy 7 original is just as good now as it was when it first had come out, and a Remake is all of what I love about it, plus the little extra story bits they're going to do. I think it was awesome. It was very well done. It's perfect. So those are great games. Love Final Fantasy. Looking forward to 16, though. This is the first time that Square Enix has pushed out a new Final Fantasy game from the announcement to the completion almost flawlessly. I think there was one delay because of COVID, but it was announced with the announcement. The game was announced in the reveal trailer for PS5 as a PlayStation 5 game. Since then, it has not changed developers. It has not been canned, canceled, reopened, renamed. It hasn't been split across different development studios and then brought back together under one house. None of that. No, it's just, here it is. Yoshida's the head of it all. Combat director from Devil May Cry 5. Here we go. It's one title from beginning to end, developed together. All the trailers make sense. It's all cohesive. We haven't gotten that, folks, since Final Fantasy 12, because 13 was a crazy ride to go on with like Final Fantasy 13 and then Final Fantasy 13 Versus and Final Fantasy 13 2 and then its sequel and then all of the controversy around Final Fantasy 13's release, and then of course 14 had come out and it was broken, had needed to be completely rebuilt, and then Final Fantasy 13 Versus became Final Fantasy 15, totally like reworking the entire game under a new engine and all the what is happening, and then Final Fantasy 7 Remake was moved in-house from, I think, what was the developer of Connect 2, I think, moved into one of Square Enix's divisions and reworked, delayed, completely started over from ground up again. And of course, we got Final Fantasy 7 Remake in its perfect state and how awesome that is. And I guess Crisis Core could fall into that story where, like, but this is a mainline game, right? Not a spin-off, not a remake, not a port. Like, yeah, since Final Fantasy 12, which was way back on the PlayStation 2 in the early aughts, to now, 20 years later. It's been 20 years since we've had a Final Fantasy game announced, showcased, updated with, teased, and it will hopefully be released in June as a full-fleshed product made from beginning to end, under one development studio, under one director, with a correct normal timeline, one engine, no reworkings, no reboots, no failures, no fragmentations, no ripping it apart, splitting up the developers, and bringing it back together. I'm excited. I cannot wait. The guy who completely fixed and reshaped Final Fantasy XIV at the helm, along with the combat director from Devil May Cry 5. What they have shown to the game so far looks awesome. I think I'm ranting at this point, or babbling, but all of this entire retro segment of my show was to showcase how much Final Fantasy has been a part of my life since dating all the way back to when I was a wee lad, renting games for the Super Nintendo, having experienced Super Mario RPG and Chrono Trigger on the Super Nintendo through Final Fantasy VII, which came out in, 97? So it's been a hot minute. 2007 is 10 years, 2017 is 20 years, 25 years now of my life. I'm 36, so way more than the majority of my life I have been playing Final Fantasy games. I absolutely love and adore them, and they are a huge impact on my life. So tell me what your thoughts are about Final Fantasy. You can jump into my Discord, 80-Bit Podsmash's Discord, interact with us, talk about Final Fantasy, your experience with it. Maybe you're nostalgic for it, maybe you're not, maybe you've never played a Final Fantasy game and you're going to play 16 when it comes out, or if you want to dabble or ask me any questions or just be nostalgic with us, you can do that. And you can find links to our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, Twitter, Discord, etc., TikTok even, all at 80bitpodsmash.com, where there's a link tree with links to all those things. It was great to hang out. Thank you for listening. Thank you for hanging out with me. And we look forward to the future when I can talk about the Frankie mod and I can update you all about my interviews and having guests on the show and things coming along of that nature. So with that, I leave you. Hope you have a great time, and I will see you next week.